Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. It is a Labor Day Monday. Josh McCuistion down in Houston at Scoop HQ down in the Houston part of the world. We'll get into a lot of the high school stuff, obviously. Josh, you hit 3 games last week, a very active week, a little doubleheader on Saturday, and it looked like a fun time. Jerry Jones was at the Star on Saturday.
Yeah, it was the Jerry Jones Classic. So he was out there
it's
flipping
his
the
thing.
coin.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this was, it's at the Star. So, they had all the Dallas Cowboys bells and whistles going all day.
I'm sure that looked like quite the scene. Emmanuel choice with some nice video that you sent back as well. So real quick, we'll get into kind of the the news of Monday, the news of Labor Day Monday. It was reported by Steve Wiltfong from On3.com, one of our colleagues, that Cortez Mills, the wide receiver who we talked about last week on the recruiting report last Sunday, had a nice catch in his season opener, I believe. Possibly taking a visit to Lincoln. Lincoln will probably be the subject of a number of visits coming up this weekend, with Colorado going to take on the Huskers. But you were able to put up a note on the Crimson Corner, and I guess just what's the latest on Cortez Mills? As I think everybody out there kind of knows the ones and twos when it comes to Oklahoma and their visit policy when you're committed. What's the latest on the wide receiver commit, Josh?
Yeah, for those that don't know or, have been under a rock for a little while, obviously Oklahoma, once you commit, they expect you to be done with the visits to really any other campuses. Now, news, like you said, was reported that he would be at Nebraska this weekend. I talked to someone pretty quickly after that report came out and was told, I don't think Oklahoma is going to be overly harsh about this. And if he says, I kind of want to take the trip, I think Oklahoma's going to work with him a little bit, but I think it's pretty clear that trip is not going to happen. That's my impression. And it's largely because Cortez Mills has a great relationship with Emmett Jones. He has a great relationship with the staff at Oklahoma and the class at large. So I think there's just kind of he wants to go there and have a trip and have a little fun. But I don't think there's anything to it. I don't think there's anything for OU fans to be alarmed about. And, I know people have heard that kind of stuff before, but again, I feel really good about, what I've heard. And it sounds very confident of, if Oklahoma really says, hey, we'd rather you not take this trip, I don't think he makes that trip.
Josh, wasn't it just this last weekend that they thought he was going to go to Florida too, maybe, or he had originally planned to visit?
There had been some talk about that, that he was going to make that trip. I think he's one of those guys that kind of enjoys being recruited and being, guys, we've talked forever. Florida guys, they're different. They like to be in the recruiting game where we're used to covering Texas kids that commit, before their senior season and they want to be done with it and those kind of things. Florida guys, I think they would run it out until the first day of class if you let them. I think they just kind of enjoy that little moment because there's not all the same media and the same attention. It's not the same as it is in Texas, where you can go to a random game in East Texas and there's going to be 3 reporters there covering it. In Florida, I've gone to games where there were multiple 5-stars in the field and nobody was covering the game. It's a different animal. So I think that's part of what this turns into, is guys just kind of, they get to have the limelight. They like it a little bit. What I will, guys, is a fun note that we didn't even get to cover. I know this wasn't part of the plan. Zane Rowe actually went to College Station, the 2027 defensive end commitment. He went to College Station last week, and I kind of got word of it, and you're like, oh, the Notre Dame game, this is a big deal. Well, what it actually was, he went down for some kind of photo shoot and literally did not stay for the game. And I talked to 2 players that were around him that told me he was basically recruiting for Oklahoma the entire time he was on A&M's campus. So, again, sometimes people see these visits and it becomes a big deal. I don't think in Cortez's case it's anything big. And obviously with Zane Rowe, I think he was probably back in Denton by halftime of the A&M game.
I'm sure that A&M fans probably didn't want him there, or maybe they did, with as much as they got run through on Saturday night. Maybe it could immediately help. It is one of those things, too, even with Cortez Mills, it would seem that putting a trip together to leave Homestead, Florida, and make it all the way to Lincoln would be a little bit tougher than maybe just getting up to Gainesville. Who knows? Obviously, we'll see what ends up happening if he goes. If I wasn't going to Ann Arbor, which, by the way, the weather looks like it's going to be unbelievable up there for the Michigan-Texas game this weekend, I'd go to Lincoln to watch Colorado and Nebraska. Yeah. That should be a pretty good football game. I think it'll probably be a little bit better than what's going to happen here in Norman. We'll get to that here in a little bit. All right, let's go into some of the games that you traveled to over the course of the weekend. Going back to last Thursday, if you want to see the post-game interview with Tory Blaylock, the running back commit from Atascocita, Josh, that is on the SoonerScoop.com editorial page. But you did have a chance to go check out Tory Blaylock, the Oklahoma running back commit.
Yeah, really season opener and honestly a big game for Atascocita with them going against Houston Lamar, a really good HISD program in the Houston area, one of the kind of city schools that I think does a better job with developing talent and all those sort of things. So I thought I would get a good kind of test at my first chance to see Tory in not a camp setting or a 7-on setting. Like it was just, obviously just a legit game. And this is in the first quarter, this run right here where he just catches the ball easy. This is fourth and 4, and they throw a swing pass behind the line to Tory Blaylock and just let him go make a play, which I think says a lot for their confidence, not only as a receiver, but what he's going to do after the catch. They knew he had a chance to go make a play. And again, it's not going to shock anybody. This guy is on a national record-holding 4x100 team. He can fly. So it wasn't a shock that really his two big contributions, one's that 38-yard catch that we were just looking at, and then the other one is a 69-yard touchdown run. And there's nobody on that field that was going to keep up with him. He just exploded through a hole on the run, kind of broke to his left, and that's what I liked. I saw a little more nuance from Blaylock than I really had thought I was going to see. I've always seen him as a very straight line guy. He's definitely a one-cut guy. He's a guy that's going to dance. Here's the clip. Yeah. And like he's just again, Houston Lamar has plenty of good athletes, and he's just running away from guys. But yeah, Carey's running it back here. So the thing I really liked, and as you see it here, watch him get through the line in this little cut right here. Like he's just going to plant his right foot and then creates just enough space to where they can't close him. And that's, again, he is a guy that just wants to get downhill, use that speed. And I like that because sometimes you get these players that have a gift like he does, and they don't know how to use it. That's not Tory Blaylock. He understands where his bread is buttered, what he can do. And I thought again, in this game, they really crowded the line. They did a lot to stop him. But when he got loose, it was a big play.
Josh, looks like his primary attribute is just his speed. Obviously, like you said, like a track guy. Where do you want to see him improve the most as just a running back? You saw the cut there, but do you want to see more from him this season?
The thing that I would say is probably maybe at times just a little more patience. Mm-hmm. I think when you have that kind of speed, you just want to let it go. And I again, as a slow guy my entire life, I can't imagine what it'd be like to run that fast. I think I'd feel the same. I just want to run as fast as I could every single time. So I think just, again, and that's what I talked about in the live thread during the game, just getting to watch his nuance a little bit more, seeing him let blocks set up, let things happen in front of you, and trust that your offensive line is going to take care of the job because Atascocita always has a good offensive line. They're a very well-coached football team. If he'll let things happen, it's going to go well. And I know a second ago there was a long touchdown run by number 14 there. That's Cortez Mack. He is a 2026 athlete that's got a bunch of good offers. Plays some quarterback, plays some slot. But when you're running zone read with a guy like Cortez Mack, who, like I said, has got probably a dozen Power 5 offers, that is just lethal when the other option is Tory Blaylock. So, again, if he'll let it happen and let the defense get into conflict, he's going to make a lot of plays. Yeah, here's Cortez Mack making a big run here. This was literally the first offensive play of the game. And it was they ran a little zone read with he and Blaylock. The defense all night for Houston Lamar was just obsessed with Blaylock. If he got the ball, somebody was there. They were coming off the corners. They were really working to slow him down, and Cortez Mack took advantage. He read it and just ran right up the middle.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Atascocita, one of those programs that usually is around come mid-December, correct?
Yeah, this is a team, and again, I've watched Atascocita 4 or 5 years now. I've going back honestly farther than that, like when Kenyon Green was at Atascocita years ago, before winning some national awards at A&M. This may be one of the more complete Atascocita teams I've seen because they've got a big time corner who Tory's little brother Trenton was actually filling in for a kid named Arion Wilkins. He's out for a couple weeks. He didn't even play in this game. Their defense looks very athletic, maybe a little undersized, but again, if they were in the state semifinals, I don't think anybody should be surprised. It's just one of those deals where eventually they pretty much run into North Shore or Katy. Katy, they actually play this week. And they've kind of gotten on pretty level terms with Katy.
Wow.
But they run into North Shore, and they tend to have some problems.
No doubt. And
like everybody else.
Yeah. Good luck to anybody trying to tangle with North Shore at any point. It would seem to, and it was included in the interview that you can watch on SoonerScoop.com's editorial YouTube page. Everything's good with the Renegade recruiter known as DeMarco Murray. A really good relationship between him and Tory Blaylock.
The Renegade was a great cliffhanger there, Eddie. I was like, where is this going? But yeah, no, absolutely. DeMarco, I feel confident that the stinging allegations, and we all know we took those very seriously, are not going to slow down this recruitment. I think Oklahoma is still in great shape here. Tory mentioned, I believe, going to Tennessee, and I think the Texas game, I think is what he mentioned. Sorry, there's been quite a few conversations since then. But he really, like I said, I don't think there's any cause for concern. I don't think that there's nothing in the way he's operating that tells me he won't, be signing with Oklahoma in December.
Could be a pretty fun backfield with him and the very, very small sample size of Taylor Tatum. It was kind of one of those, and we'll get it to at the end here, but it's like, oh, okay. That's the number one running back in the country. He must have a little something for you. Once Tory does get to Norman, you can see him wearing a suit on game day, and that is because of William and Lauren, the sponsor here today. Great to have them on out of Oklahoma City. Anytime that you see any of the football players in some of the pregame stuff, wearing the suits there during the Walk of Champions, they're all outfitted by William and Lauren, which is fantastic. Yeah, a lot of really good looks this week.
Look at that one, Grayson Halton.
Grayson Halton with what is that? A lime green, like a teal almost.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely.
Zach Alley looking fresh. Jared Kanek would find the end zone later on in the afternoon.
I said it earlier. I need a second suit. So.
Sammy Omosigo and David Stone both had maybe the looks of the days. I think I wore that exact same look to my junior prom.
We need photo evidence.
There is photo evidence.
Yeah. I don't believe it. We need proof.
As the official custom clothier of OU football, William and Lauren outfits your favorite OU players in custom suits that boost their confidence off the field to match their confidence on the field. Their perfectly tailored clothing ensures every Sooner stands out in comfort and style at prices that make luxury accessible. Visit William and Lauren in Oklahoma City or online at williamandlauren.com. That is the name William, ANDLAUREN.com. Dress like champions and make your style as legendary as OU football. So really good looks. If you want to, that whole Walk of Champions stuff now moved over to the north side. I know we talked about it on the Eskridge Lexus postgame show, but that was awesome. I thought it went off very, very well.
Yeah, I know you talked about it a lot. I didn't get to see it, but I've heard really good reviews.
It was cool. Maybe you could join us this week.
Yeah,
over at the Walk of Champions.
I'll go over there this week.
That'd be nice. I mean, we are working on Labor Day, so just want to make you work a little bit more. One of the other games that you went to on Saturday as part of a doubleheader, one of our first times, or your first opportunity to see Omarion Robinson in action. Parkview Magnet made the trip all the way over to the DFW area to take on Melissa Owen Hollenbeck, the Oklahoma offensive line commit. But some of the video that you sent back from Omarion Robinson, and they actually do win the game on Saturday, 27-20. A lot to like with the Little Rock product, Josh.
Yeah, this was one of those things where like you kind of knew going in you were going to see something good, but he more than lived up to my expectations. He's a kid, we've talked about him since long prior to his commitment. I'm a huge fan of his game. I really like the way he plays on tape. But what I noticed I'm not sure when I look at Oklahoma's defensive backs, if I've seen one, not defensive backs, but their safeties, that is as natural and is like watch him right there. Just break on the ball. When he sees stuff, Eddie, you can speak to this. When you're watching a guy on video and you've got him kind of ISO'd, you can tell when the ball's coming in their direction because their whole body kind of tenses, they trigger. He does it every time. Like if the quarterback's arm is locked, like he is he looks like the ball is going to come his way. And it fooled me more than once. And I just love that because, like, he is a guy that every single snap is looking to make the big play. Like, he wants to be that dude and wants to jump routes. And he tried to bait the quarterback several times and did. Of course, the one clip, and Eddie can confirm, I sent him about 130 clips from this game. And the one I wasn't running, he has a pick six that he runs back. So a little bit frustrating there. But I think as far as a man coverage guy, he is as good as safety as I've seen Oklahoma laying in a while. He really has that's another great one there. This gets called for a pass interference. It was absolutely nuts. If you run it slow, you can watch his hands in front of the receiver. It's just an unbelievably good play as he's breaking across the middle. You'll see him come in from screen right here, and he just kind of dives, jumps in, both hands. He nearly picks that ball and somehow gets called for a PI. It was maybe a better play than the pick six later on in the game.
Perhaps it's just because of the number, but is there a little Billy Bowman in there just in terms of the twitch?
There is some of that, because the thing I like about him is and I think we showed it in one of the early clips, he's got some violence to him. Like, he'll lower his shoulder and hit somebody. This isn't a guy that's trying to just usher you out of bounds or anything like that. He has some edge to his game. And I came away very impressed. I know within the rankings models, there's a lot of different, I think, I know Rivals has him in the top 40. We've got him as a 3-star. I know 24/7 does as well. There's a lot of variance. But, man, when I see him, I see a top 150 guy in the country. Like, I think Omarion Robinson's very, very good. And he's a little smaller than I thought he was going to be. He's, somewhere between 5'9" and some change and 5'10". Like, I mean, he's not little. It's not like a problem. But he's a little smaller than I thought he was going to be. But at a safety, that doesn't bother me as much.
Josh, it seems like he has really good football instincts. And I think one thing we can say about the safeties that Brandon Hall has brought in, whether it's Peyton Bowen or Michael Boganowski, who, had that huge hit on Friday against Houston, Reggie Powers, Jaden Hardy, all these guys seem to have really good football instincts. They may not always be the biggest guys or the most athletic guys, even though a lot of these guys are very athletic, but would you say that that's safe to say with that safety spot as like football IQ is off the charts for a lot of these guys that Brandon Hall's recruiting?
I think you're dead on, George. Like, I think that is, every coach has his deal breakers, the one or two things that just have to exist. And I think when you look at them, I mean, I realize every coach would like to have these things, but the guys that he has signed so far during his time, Brandon Hall, all of them are very smart, very instinctual guys. Like, just they are always around the football. A lot of them play a lot of offense, very, kind of lending to that athleticism and that playmaking and ball skills. And I think the other side is just being physical guys. Like, maybe not always violent. Not everybody's Michael Boganowski, but these are guys who are willing to stick their head in. They're not, coverage safeties that won't come up and play. They are complete safeties, very smart guys. And I think a lot of them have they're not guys that Oklahoma is going to be afraid to leave in a man-to-man situation because they think they can handle it.
What'd you make of Owen Hollenbeck's night, one of the longtime Oklahoma commits in this 2025 class in the offensive line?
The thing that most upset me is I talked to Owen for a while after the game, and Eddie, and this is something we've talked about before. I try not to interview guys after a loss. It's just, it's not very fun. But Owen, like, to his credit, he comes over, and I had talked to him before the game. I wanted to get a picture of he and Omarion together. And, we had to go drag Omarion out of the stands. He was up in the stands with his family for a little bit. And so, they got together and they talked. And I get to talking to Owen, and he's talking about, what was happening on the field and some of the stuff he was doing. And, he mentioned one something that they were doing unique to him on some of the special team stuff. It was just a very interesting look into Owen's personality. But this is a guy that just likes playing football. Like, he thinks about how can I be the most violent physical player I can be, and he's a great kid off the field. Like, I when I say stuff like that, or I talk about the hair and how nasty looking he is, people kind of have this idea of like, oh, he's he's a bad dude. He's a great guy to talk to. He just thinks football all the time. And he was talking about playing right guard, and he can't wait to play center at Oklahoma. He was kind of talking about the velocity of his snaps has been a problem at points in his high school career. So they kind of put him at guard, and they're like, we'll let somebody else play center. You can move there when it's time. But again, really physical, so strong. The thing and we've talked about this before, Owen's such a big-time power lifter. I think it has limited his movement skills a little bit, maybe at times. I think that's something that, Bill Bedenbaugh, Jerry Schmidt, they're going to sit down and say, hey, man, we love the strength. We love the power. Let's change this up a little bit. We're going to do some different things with your body, with some flexion. We're going to get you moving around a little bit differently. And I don't think that's a knock on Owen at all. I think that's just how do you make him a better player. And I think given time, I think he can be really good because I think that's one of the things Jerry Schmidt really excels in is taking some of these bigger bodies and changing them a little bit and kind of making them more fluid.
Josh, he's listed at 340 pounds. Is that accurate? Is he really that big?
He probably is.
Wow.
Owen is a massive human being.
That is a big dude.
But like
you don't
he's one
feel
of those
like
guys,
it though, right? Like
No.
talking to him.
Mm-hmm. He is a big dude, and just like one of those guys, just big everywhere, like big calves, big feet, big shoulders. Like he's just a big human being. And the thing I loved about him is I was talking to him, and we were joking around about how when he was younger, they had told him, "Oh, you're going to be 6'6", 6'7", you're going to be this enormous kid." And I said, "Oh yeah, you were dreaming of left tackle and all that." And he goes, "Man, I don't want to be out there. I want to be in the middle. Like I want to mix it up. I want to fight with and you're like, that's a Bill Bedenbaugh guy all day, every day. And he does. I mean, he just wants to humiliate whoever he's going against. Like he wants to bury you if he's given the chance. Now, after the game, one of the kids that he was going against a lot of reps came over to him and was talking to him. And, they're talking about, this play and that play. And Owen was like, yeah, man, that one, I kind of got you on the shoulder, he couldn't have been more humble about it, but that kid knows he had a rough night. He's going to sleep well, driving back on the bus to Little Rock on Saturday night.
I wonder if if Owen can come up and play next week for OU.
I was going to say, given
help at
Oklahoma's situation at center, is he a guy that he would need a little bit of more time given that he's playing more guard right now than center?
I honestly think Owen could probably handle it. He's a kid. I haven't verified with him, but I'd be stunned if he's not a midterm guy. I just expect that usually with offensive linemen.
Sure.
That's kind of the way it goes. So I would expect he'll be there at midterm. With his strength, I mean, guys, he's going to walk into Oklahoma, and I would bet you there's not 5 offensive linemen on that roster stronger than he is. Like, I mean, he is that kind of power. Big, strong, just like it's not every day. Like George talking about him being 340 pounds. You can look at some of the shots. You can see muscle in his arm. Like 340 pounds usually is soft and fleshy. That's not Owen. Like he is big and really, again, you can tell how much work he puts into the weight room. So I don't think he's going to arrive and be like, he can't handle the physicality. I want to see the movement a little bit. Like I said, that to me, that's Owen's. That's what he's got to improve on. That's where he's got to grow. And obviously learning the offense and technique, like we understand all that. That's just inherent in playing that position. But I think if he can show he can move, he can deal with, counters and things like that. When he's facing guys that are as big and strong as he is, you kind of got to throw him in the deep water and see what happens.
I wonder too, at 340 pounds, I would assume OU would want to shave some of that weight off. Like especially when Josh is talking about movement,
sure,
at the center position.
Yep.
I don't think you want your center to be 340 pounds. You want him more around like 300, 310. I think I want to say Josh Bates is around 310. Hickman's like 295, which is probably too small. So I would assume getting in the weight room with Schmitty over the summer will be a huge help for him.
No doubt. Let's head over to the Star. As we mentioned, the Jerry Jones Classic with Lancaster and North Crowley, 2025 Oklahoma wide receiver commit Emmanuel Choice. And Josh, there was a ton of light from the video that you sent back. It seems like he had a really good day in a game that Lancaster ended up losing 29-21. North Crowley ends up winning, but it looked like Emmanuel Choice was a big part of the offensive production for Lancaster.
Yeah, I don't think there's a coincidence that I believe on every drive Lancaster scored, he had at least a 20-yard catch. Like, I mean, that's just not accidental.
Jerry.
And look, yeah, you got Jerry Jones there in the blue suit. You can see him over there. And then the guy standing taller than literally everybody else in the group is Oklahoma's wide receiver commitment. Emmanuel is a huge guy. Like, I mean, he is in that. He's probably not quite as tall as Jaden Gibson, but of a similar, like, he's in the same stratosphere, and at the same time is thicker. And I mean, you can see it right there.
He's just getting ready to say, Josh, he has filled out a lot over the last 6-ish months since we saw him during the spring.
Yeah. I mean, because you're right, Eddie. Last time we saw him was at Under Armour camp, and he has some presence to him. Like, he really is a bigger guy. And like, there were multiple times, like this clip we're showing right here, where they just don't get to him, and he's beating the corner badly off the line of scrimmage. I couldn't believe how much North Crowley was playing press on him, because they should have paid for it more than they did. But yeah, I mean, like, look here, guys. I mean, you're talking. Look at that
little
spin
burst.
move. I mean, guys, this kid, if he's not 6'4", he's a hair under, and he's 190 pounds. And this is North Crowley, who last year went to the state semifinals. Like, this is a really good program with a bunch of good athletes, and they had trouble bringing him down all day. He was just very, very good, attacked in a lot of ways. And what I liked is he worked a lot out of the slot. He worked outside. Like, he's not a guy that, is going to be so unfamiliar. And again, it's not like Oklahoma's going to put him in the slot, but they could do it to create some matchups if they wanted to. And it's clearly something he's comfortable with. He caught a lot of different passes, a lot of different ways. I came away very impressed. Like, I thought even more of him than I had coming in.
Josh, any guys that you would compare him to, either on OU's roster or previously on OU's roster?
I said Jaden Gibson earlier. I would say he's probably more like Nick Anderson if you were going to look at a guy currently on the roster. Same big body. I don't think he has quite Nick's speed to stretch the field. But I don't want to say that's more of Nick being kind of exemplary in that way for such a big guy. But I would say when he gets to Oklahoma, he'll have some of the best hands on the field. Like, when Eddie, we talked about that when we saw him in Dallas at Under Armour. And then look at him just catching the ball away from his body. He's in the middle of 3 defenders. He knows he's going to take a hit. I love the way this guy catches the ball. Like, he is so natural. It's so smooth to him. And again, he can do it over the shoulder. He can, he'll catch it away from his body. He'll do it through traffic. There's really nothing about his ability. And again, shaking the guy's hands, he's got big old mitts like you'd expect for a kid as big as he is. So this wide receiver class, I think people look at it and they don't see like the obvious, like, okay, there's the CD Lamb or there's the Sterling Shepard, the one guy that sticks out above everybody. But the more I watch this wide receiver group, they're just all really, really good.
I think I would probably have gone Elijah Thomas, just sight unseen, as the guy that I'm most excited about from that wide receiver group. But you look at this tape, and just physically, he looks like a guy that could come in and step in and play from day one.
How much does he weigh?
I would say he's at least 185. Like, he's not like, too slight, too lean, anything like that. So he's got something to him. And like Eddie said, I bet he's put on 10 or 15 pounds since we saw him in Under Armour. Yeah. So he's clearly working. Lancaster's a great program. I mean, they work in the off season. It's not like that. So, again, he is just such a nice compliment to some of the other guys, because Eddie's right. Like, and Elijah, for those who haven't stopped and watched it, go watch Elijah Thomas's week 1 highlights against Okmulgee. Okmulgee is not going to be upset that they'll never have to play Elijah Thomas again. He let them up just like he does everybody else. He was unbelievable. And also Cortez Mills, who obviously we've already talked about. I think the world of him. Super excited to see Marcus Harris here in a few weeks. Going to go out to California and get my first look at him as well.
I think the wide receiver stuff is really interesting, because you look at this freshman class that's here now. And some of these guys, I mean, a couple of them probably going to have to step up this year when you look at the injury
sure.
situation. But then you look at next season, and you're probably going to be without Deion Burks, Jalil Farouk, Nick Anderson could go to the NFL. You hope to get Jaden Gibson back, but he's coming off a serious injury. You've got a lot of guys. Andrel Anthony, who knows what his future looks like. I think he's a senior. So you're going to have a lot of young guys that are going to have a chance to get on the field pretty quickly next season.
And you would assume that there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to want to play with Jackson Arnold. He looked good in the first start in Norman, obviously 17 to 25, just over 140 yards. Josh, just real quick before we get out of here, your thoughts, concerns? There could be a lot in terms of offensive line and criticisms from the opening game of the 2024 season, a 51-3 victory on Friday night.
God, it's so insane. Like you talk, the good teams win, great teams cover. Oh, you covered. And people are acting like that, some an abominable performance. And I think it's, guys, how much do you think of that is just based on Oklahoma fans are learning that games can be won in a different way, or remembering, not even learning. They've forgotten that you don't have to score or rack up 50 yards of offense to have a good performance. Oklahoma's defense made a lot of that possible. At the same time, the people upset or concerned about the offensive line, I don't know why. Were you caught off guard? Like, we knew this was going to be a problem. This was always going to be a year where the group was going to have to grow from game 1 to game 12. This is not 2017 where you return everybody and everything's in place. This was going to have some hiccups. It was just going to happen. And then when you throw in the fact that probably, until Troy Everett returns, the most irreplaceable guy on that offensive line is Branson Hickman, and you lose him in the first 10 snaps of the game, that's going to create a lot of problems. It just is. There's no way around that. So I think people are going to have some grace. The nice thing is OU has 3 games to start the year where they can figure this out. The defense clearly is going to be stifling for all 3 of those teams, and I don't think anybody should expect a lot out of Houston for what we saw against UNLV. I don't think that's going to be any scarier. Oklahoma can cut their teeth. They can kind of figure out what's going on. Again, is it going to be – it's not all going to be right against Houston, so have your minds prepared for that. Everybody out there listening, there's going to be problems again on Saturday. It's going to happen. But I think you start to see it round into some sort of shape or form once they have a center situation solidified, whatever that may be. If it's Garen Hatchett, if it's Josh Bates, if it's Branson Hickman, if Troy Everett gets back in reasonable amount of time, whatever that's going to be, you've got to get that going, and then I think everything else starts to kind of handle itself. But what I will say to you guys is, to me, other than the idea that Jacob Sexton is one of your starting tackles, I think almost every other position is pretty open for grabs. Like, I don't think there's anything that I am entrenched in an idea in.
I mean, look, for me,
let's go here real quick. Where are you, Josh, on the idea that you saw Eddie Pierre-Louis get in at the very end? Do you just start tinkering with the idea? And this is like the conversation that we had on the Eskridge-Lexus post game. It's like, we know that Bill's probably not going to do this, but wouldn't it be nice if you just give some of these freshmen an opportunity? You see Notre Dame start 2 freshmen on Saturday night in College Station. They didn't have much of a problem. Now, some of those guys might be further ahead than somebody like an Eddie Pierre-Louis. I don't know. It's like, are you already at 1 week in a point where it's like, F it, try anything? Because you got 2 weeks before Tennessee comes to town, and you really have to get that stuff figured out.
Yeah, and guys, that has always been a fair criticism of Bill, the desire for experience. And again, every offensive line coach would rather have it, or anybody. You'd rather have the 4-year starter that's great than having to start a freshman. But that's not always what you get. And I think last year we saw in the Texas game, OU was like, let's try Caden Green with T'Vondre Sweat. And then all of a sudden, the running game started to open up the middle, and they could deal with Sweat in a different way. I think you're going to see some growth like that. I think you're going to see guys. And I know he's one of my guys. I've been beating the drum for him forever. I thought Logan Howland played really well. I thought he had good moments and showed, again, I'm not saying he's ready to start. I'm not down that road. I want to see more. But I do think he earned the right to get back out there against Houston and say, okay, now let's see where this goes. But Eddie Pierre-Louis, again, he has some moments you're like, wow. I mean, like very, very similar to Caden Green, where you see the athleticism, you see the explosion, and you're like, that's a future NFL talent if it all comes together. Same for Heath Ozida. There were some great moments for Heath Ozida that I really liked. I was shocked we didn't see more of him. So I wonder if maybe, guys, I was listening to Gabe and Teddy's podcast a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about the first game of the year, and Stephen Good got a start over him. And Bill came to him and was like, I'm going to start him. He's going to get the shot. And I kind of wonder if that's almost what this was, where they said, okay, we've got some veteran guys. They're going to get the run. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And then after what happened, it's almost like, how are you going to get mad at Bill Bedenbaugh because you're not going to play as much in week 2 with the younger, more talented guy? Like, with what they put out there, there's no guy out there that should be like, well, yeah, I got my spot cemented. It's just that's not reality. That's not what there is. And if you've got good young talent, at some point you've got to let it grow.
It all starts at center for me, because I think that they have some decent pieces at tackle and guard, and getting Jake Taylor back this week I think can fix a lot of the issues they had at right tackle. And I think Michael Tarquin actually wasn't terrible. Like, I think he can play one of those tackle spots for you when you're in a pinch. I think Fabechi Wiwu wasn't as impressive as I had hoped, but he was fine. I think center, when Branson Hickman went out, it just kind of changed everything for them, and they just don't have a guy right now that they really trust at center, and that's why Sexton has to play guard, and they have to shuffle all these guys around. If all of a sudden you can get a Troy Everett or a Branson Hickman healthy and starting as your center, then all of a sudden you can pop Jacob Sexton out to a left tackle or right tackle, and you can play a Heath Ozida or an Eddie Pierre-Louis at guard because you trust your center to make the right calls, do all the things that they need to do. Whereas, like, right now, I just don't know if they have that person at center. That to me is like, if you can figure out center, I think everything else can kind of fall into place for them.
Not to exactly pick on a guy, but in all the years you've been doing a report card, is 25 the worst grade that you've ever given out for Spencer Brown?
It's pretty low. And I do want to say, I have not, and I know George has gone back and watched it. I have not, obviously had the game on Saturday, Sunday, got a little family time in. So I have not gone back and really watched the game yet. Planning to do that for the Monday Morning Idiot. It's obviously Monday afternoon. Going to get that going in the evening. So that's all coming, all the normal content that our readers are used to. But I think it was, the problem with it is, and especially when I do the report card, it's hard to watch every guy on every play. Forget hard. It's impossible. You can't do it. So you're going to miss some moments. What you do tend to remember are the big ones. And Spencer Brown, when he had mistakes, they were pretty catastrophic. They were really problematic. And I don't know what to make of that yet. I still want to watch. Again, I want to watch some more. I want to see what comes out of it. But to me, I agree with George. Like, Michael Tarquin is a fine option at tackle. Spencer Brown, if he's got to come in for a few plays, I think that's fine. I think tackle was always going to be a question with this team. I still think interior, they're going to work it out. It'll be fine. There's talent there. There's some experience there. I think they can find a way around. But this is why I always worried about all the talk of Jacob Sexton starting at left guard, because you don't have enough good numbers at tackle to be wasting one of the few guys that I think can really play that spot.
It's going to be interesting. Oklahoma heads into week 2 here now, when Brent Venables will be talking to the media on Tuesday morning. We'll be talking to players this evening on Monday here, as we get into a little bit of a normal regular schedule coming up this week with the game at 6:45 on Saturday night. So, all right, that's going to do it for a recruiting report. Josh, we appreciate it. We will talk to you on Wednesday for the unofficial 40. George, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for you being here.
Thank you.
I know you spent the weekend at the lake.
For a day, just a single day.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Went to
we appreciate
Eufaula.
it.
It was a fun time. Came back yesterday though, and had to do radio this morning. It was Labor Day. There's a lot of people out driving around, so that's being sarcastic and facetious. All right, that'll do it. I'm Eddie. He's George. Josh, right there. We'll see you on Tuesday for a practice report recapping everything from the Brent Venables press conference Tuesday morning as Oklahoma prepares for Houston.